The customers are the current people who are patronizing. When you go to them, you ask them, what can I do for you? They're going to ask you to give them more value for less money.
The current system we have in place, and I think we should ring the bell. Ding, 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 ding.
Yes.
Our current education system, something we want to unlearn.
It was quite an interesting thing because I was dealing with a attempted suicide case. In other words, begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. And the end has to be value for your non-customers. Don't look at what's happening now, where the best things are. Look at where things can become better and greater for others not being served.
The topic for today is identifying, locating, planning, addressing, researching, sort of defining or undefining your non-customers, right? We want to remove all the limitations, rethink the idea of customers and non-customers. So the first one is your non-customers is what matters. That's where you start. The second one is let's change the perspective, as you mentioned, Fritz, earlier. It's a mindset shift that has to go on. Now we are coming to defining the different tiers. We have 3 tiers of non-customers. And the first one is the ones who are closest to you, right? What are great questions? How would you define great questions?
Well, great questions are questions that do not lead to multiple choice.
Interesting way of framing it. I mean, it's I have a very similar answer. Great questions are questions that lead to more questions.
That's correct.
But not a defined answer, but more questions that open your perspective. A great question should act as a shift in perspective.
That's correct. Because the current system, we're trained to ask questions that lead to an answer. But you should ask questions that lead to a bigger question. Because it's about layers, like in an onion.
Ding, 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 ding. Let's ring the bell. Let's unlearn that. I believe that's a big takeaway. Can you repeat that for us?
Well, great questions don't lead to answers. They lead to deeper questions.
Wow. Let's define what's a great question. All right. We have a definition of a great question, right? And questioning. Whenever you're faced with a complex situation, what's your mindset going into complex situations and decision making? How do you frame yourself or get yourself ready to ask the right question? Because somebody might be asking, how do I develop that?
All right. Jamie, you ask about how do you frame yourself to ask the right questions? When you're in a complex situation, you have to see the situation as multiples of situations and not as one situation. But the challenge is to try to wrap your mind around a complex situation, ask a question that you think is going to lead to an answer. But you have to see it as a multiple of components. So it's about like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
So you have to look at the elephant and you find a place to start, and you have to take mouthfuls. And that's what a great question do. You bite a piece, it leads you to more pieces. You bite a piece, it leads you to more pieces. And you have to see it in layers and to be patient enough to go through the layers. And then while you go through the questioning, maybe you start to unravel some patterns. But the patterns are also in layers. Then you break it down, like how do you write a computer program? You have to use codes. And you have to be logical. You have to go through the codes one step at a time. But the difference now, the complex situation, they're not linear. So you don't go through to ask a question going to lead to what next along the way. You have to ask questions that leave you in a position that you have to pivot sometimes. When you reach 9 questions, maybe all the first 8 don't make any sense. Are we prepared to see that?
I think it's quite interesting how the pressure we put on our minds for failing, and the fear of failing. It's, I think, and I believe generally that we should shift more to a competence-based system in a lot more of our disciplines than, for example, qualifications.
No, you're correct, because what is happening, our education system is still stuck in the first industrial revolution, where steam engines were created, and we now need people to staff the factories. So what happened? The number of people that were needed, they created a production line. Look at the school system. When you go from the primary system, well, in the English education system, a bell, you ring the bell to move people from one class to another. So it's like a batch. It's a batch training.
Right.
There's no space for creativity. In fact, you're taught there is only one right answer, and it's in the back of the book. So you're taught to lay aside your creativity and work with the system, because you get promoted by batches.
When you make a decision and you decide with your team, we are going to go down this road, when do you stop and to say enough, we need to pivot? What are some of the factors that you look for? Some of the signs?
Well, it goes back to what we have been saying, Jamie, in actually looking for non-customers, is we're going down the road, not looking for answers, but asking questions. And every time you ask a question, it leaves you in a position to pivot. Every time you look for an answer, you want to hold on to where you start, because the answer is on a linear track. So as long as we're asking the questions and we go down the road, expecting that we don't know what to expect, but we are open for the ride.
Expect that we don't know what to expect.
Yes.
I think this is key. Ask questions, but be careful not to keep questioning your decisions.
That's correct.
It's important. Sometimes you have to boil down and make a decision, right?
Yes.
Keep asking questions, but let's not make it personal to be asking or questioning your decision all the time, because then you really never get anywhere. So there's a difference between the mindset of constantly revisiting and asking questions than questioning your decisions.
Yes.
What a place to end this, Dr. Pinnock. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being with us. Here on the Unlearn Show, we hope you have created a new memory. Final word, Dr. Pinnock.
Well, the final word is start at the end, not at the beginning. In other words, begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. And the end has to be value for your non-customers. Don't look at what's happening now, where the best things are. Look at where things can become better and greater for others not being served. Thank you.
Well said. Wonderful. Thank you, sir.